You know, folks, there have been many great economists over the years, and unfortunately more who are quite poor. But one of the great ones passed away, economist Joseph Schumpeter. Now, he explained something called creative destruction. Stick with me here, because I want to explain this in the context of Obama and what's going on in the country today. Creative destruction relating to capitalism. And he said capitalism is by nature a form or method of economic change. And not only never is, but never can be stationary. The fundamental impulse that sets and keeps the capitalist engine in motion comes from the new consumers, goods, the new methods of production or transportation, the new markets, the new forms of industrial organization that enterprise creates. He said the history of the productive apparatus of a typical farm, from the beginnings of the rationalization of crop rotation, plowing, and fattening, to the mechanized thing of today, linking up with elevators and railroads, is a history of revolutions. So is the history of the productive apparatus of the iron and steel industry, from the charcoal furnace to our own type of furnace, of the history of the apparatus of power production from the overshot water wheel to the modern power plant, or the history of transportation from the mail coach to the airplane. The opening up of new markets, foreign or domestic, and the organizational development from the craft shop and the factory to such concerns as U.S. Steel illustrate the same process of industrial mutation that incessantly revolutionizes the economic structure from within, incessantly destroying the old one, incessantly creating a new one. This process of creative destruction is the essential fact about capitalism. It is what capitalism consists in and what every capitalist concern has got to live in. It's called economic progress, economic evolution. It's called creating wealth and opportunities and new jobs and more jobs. It's called living. Mankind does not stand still. That is the context I wanted to give you for what Obama said, and I had this audio yesterday, but I didn't have time to get to it, which is stunning in many respects. A comment he made about economics that demonstrates, not that he's a fool, because he is, but how dug in on the socialist Marxist model he is. How dug in he is on a government-run industrial policies. So here he is yesterday. Cut one, go.
We are now in a process where the economy is growing again, and we've created 2 million jobs over the last 15 months.
Lie.
But it's not as fast as it needs to be to make up for all the jobs that were lost. The other thing that happened, though, and this goes to the point you were just making, is there's some structural issues with our economy where a lot of businesses have learned to become much more efficient with a lot fewer workers. You see it when you go to a bank and you use an ATM. You don't go to a bank teller. Or you go to the airport and you're using a kiosk instead of checking in at the gate. So all these things have created changes in the economy.
So who builds ATM machines and who maintains them? Who builds these kiosks and who maintains them? You see, his mind is one of limitation, not of his own powers, not of government authority. Limitation on the capacity of man in the individual in a relatively free society. We have no idea 10, 20, 30 years from now what entrepreneurs, what businesses, what individuals in their garages or in labs, what companies spending on research and development will create, what they will invent. We can't possibly know today what will happen 20 or 30 years from now when it comes to what Adam Smith called this spontaneous order, this harmony of interests, which happens when tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people, in their own lives, in their own ways, pursuing their own interests, pursuing profits or pursuing recognition, whatever, are busy each day, relatively free to pursue their own interests. You see, what the centralization types, what the consolidate power types don't understand is they can't possibly know. They can't possibly know the future when it comes to freedom, when it comes to capitalism. And yet they are constantly trying to control it. They are constantly tormenting it. They're constantly interfering with it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the way Barack Obama was speaking, can you imagine in the 1800s when whale blubber was being used, the fat from whales, to light streets, to light homes, Yes. Would we ever got into electricity? Would we ever have drilled for oil? What about the assembly line? The assembly line, for all intents and purposes, didn't exist in the 1800s. I mean, what about the Industrial Revolution? You couldn't have seen that 200 years before the Industrial Revolution. Not only that, economies change, economies develop, economies evolve. Typically from mostly agrarian to industrial to service-oriented. Doesn't mean you lose all aspects of the agrarian and industrial parts, but it means that there's a flow to a free economy and a free society. Now, this is what's so odd about what's going on in this government. The fact that they're so committed to an ideology that is so old, that has been proven to be a disaster. They talk about modernity. They talk about progress, and yet they are stuck in the pre-industrial revolution period. They are stuck with some kind of bastard offshoot of Marxism. They can't quite explain it, but they know it involves empowering themselves and the government and a massive bureaucracy and stealing more and more of your liberty and private property. Don't they? Alexis de Tocqueville, he said, democracy attaches all possible value to each man, while socialism makes each man a mere agent, a mere number. Now that says it all. That tells you what we're up against in this government. When Obama sits there, talks about ATM machines and kiosks at airports, I would ask you, Obama supporters, what exactly is it that he's promoting? You know, it's a funny thing how we use these terms and over time how they've been misused. Like conservatives oppose progress. No, conservatives support progress within the civil society. Individuals making decisions, as long as they're not criminal decisions or immoral decisions, making decisions. And we believe in societal progress. That's why we believe in capitalism. But there are also certain permanent things. The rule of law has to be a permanent thing. The Constitution has to be a permanent thing. It's not that the Constitution should be living and breathing and changing. The Constitution is the foundation of our society. If you change the foundation, you destroy our society. What's living and breathing are human beings. And human beings should be relatively free, in fact, mostly free, to live their lives, to pursue their happiness, to pursue their interests. Government doesn't do that. Government is supposed to set some basic standards, and beyond that, get the hell out of the way. Otherwise, why have a constitution, particularly ours, which, if you read it, is so thoroughly limiting on the central government? Why bother? The reason we have ATM machines, Mr. President, is because we want them. The reason we have kiosks, Mr. President, is because we want them. Somebody invented them, or some group of people invented them, or some industry invented them, tested them, and we like them, and we want them. It's called liberty. It's called economic progress. That's why we have ATM machines. That's why we have kiosks. That's also why we have flat-screen TVs, and iPhones, and cell phones. Yes. That's also why we have flush toilets and don't piss in the same river we drink out of. That's why we have an Air Force One with the latest technology, cutting-edge technology, to get you where you want to go and to protect you. It's the most magnificent system on the face of the earth, and the dummy doesn't even get it. Or he's so stuck in his ideology, he believes that while he should benefit from it, the rest of us shouldn't. He should not only manage his lives, he should manage our lives. Ladies and gentlemen, I had Walter Williams on this program a few months ago, and he said that he believes that we're heading toward totalitarianism. And he's right. I mean, what kind of thinking is this from the leader of our government? The government doesn't exist to control us in everything we do, to kick us around, to tell us, you know, how we're supposed to live our daily lives, what to feed our children, how to flush a toilet, how to paint a wall. It's not the role of government. That's not freedom. It's not even close. And when you consider the government's doing this without any constitutional authority, none, just because the Supreme Court says so doesn't make it so. Well, what would you call it? So the President of the United States says, we're losing jobs because of advancement, economic advancement. Let me tell you something, folks. You want to see a society that doesn't have any economic progress? Look at North Korea. They have a very high unemployment rate, and a very high starvation rate, and a very high homeless rate, and a very high prisoners in gulag rate. All these backward societies that embrace the philosophy that Barack Obama talks about in one form or another, some kind of centralized, consolidated authoritarianism. They're unsuccessful. They're miserable. They're inhumane. And you can see we have a taste of it today. With the housing market and the job market and the price of fuels and everything. We have people spitting out regulations. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they come from. We don't know what their agenda is. Why doesn't Politico worry about that? Why aren't the left concerned about that? Because the left believes in this. They're authoritarians in one form or another, aren't they? So what is the economic plan of this administration? What is the growth plan? When a president has it so backwards, so upside down, what's the plan? Well, the plan is to continue with his ideological beliefs. That's the plan. And he's stuck on Marxism. And he's not getting off of it. So the only way to change our economy, the only way to change what's happening, is to change who's in the Oval Office. Period. Because he is not open to information. He's not open to knowledge. He is not open to science. He's not open to human experience and history. He's got blinders on. And he's stuck on Marxism. ATM machine? The reason we have these things is because people want them, because they make life easier. That's why. That's why we do these things. That's why we have jets now, as opposed to propeller planes for most of us. That's why we have indoor bathrooms as opposed to outhouses for most of us. Somebody had to invent these things, or parts of them. I mean, this is rudimentary stuff. Rudimentary. His discussion about ATM machines and kiosks tells you every damn thing you need to know about the man. His complete idiocy when it comes to the nature of human beings, when it comes to human history, when it comes to economic progress, when it comes to the role of government. When I say idiocy, I don't mean he's clueless. Quite the contrary. I mean he's stuck on Marxism. So, of course, you can't grow the private sector when you have a president like this, because his intention is not to grow the private sector. No one who seeks to grow the private sector, that is, unleashes our industries by stopping the torment and the abuse of the individual. Nobody who believes as Obama believes is ever going to do that. He's not a capitalist. He doesn't believe in the private sector because he's stuck on Marxism.